Completely famished by this morning's tasks, I scooted onto the bench with a bowl of mushroom soup. Oh yes. Grabbing a slice of Swiss cheese, I teared it and dropped the pieces into the soup.
What are you doing?
Adding cheese to my soup?
Is that what people do in America?
It's what I do. I guess it's common enough. I haven't really thought about it. A few seats down, I noticed Kyler also eyeing my actions before silently returning to his meal. Was adding cheese to soup really that bizarre? I heard a holler behind us, and many of us automatically turned our heads toward the driveway. A tall woman dragged a suitcase behind her, while her free hand waved toward one end of the eating area. Hendrik immediately stood up and approached her.
Rose, glad you could finally make it. I didn't think you'd arrive this early.
No thanks to you! You practically ditched me in the middle of those core samples!
What can I say? Analyzing core samples is boring.
Oh no, don't pun around with me, Mr. Ace Geologist! Her stern expression faded, and they both exchanged a cordial grin as they leaned in for a cheek kiss. Augustin and Sherry gathered around her as well. Would it be okay to introduce myself too? I'll do that later. No, it'd feel so rude if I just barged in there and introduced myself. I was a student under Sherry, after all. However, I was still curious. I glanced in Kyler's direction. Hey, Kyler. Kyler, who is she?
Rosemarie. She's part of the main team. She does lithic work and all that. Stone tools and technology.
Huh, that's pretty neat.
Usually she arrives earlier to teach students about identifying flint.
He trailed off, feeling that his answer was self-contained enough, and resumed eating his meal. Rosemarie is... Chantal delivered a concise summary, and Joan nodded happily.
Of course, that means yet another lecture. If only they covered the stuff I want to learn.
Chantal slumped over while Joan fidgeted anxiously. They exchanged a few words in French, and Chantal seemed touched.
Aw, Joan.
What did she say?
She said she'll stay with me for the whole 8 weeks. Most students, if archaeology isn't their elective, only need to stay for 4 at the most. I mean, I could break it down, but I'd rather get it over with in one go.
Then Kyler doesn't have to be here? This is his 4th time.
I guess not, but it does look good if you're trying to break into archaeological work. Either way, I don't want to pay 100 euros a week to dig in dirt, but I guess that's his thing. He's probably not graded on this. He willingly paid to volunteer? She tilted her head, pondering before concluding with a careless shrug. And you're here until the excavation ends?
Uh-huh. Be a shame if I only came here for a few weeks, considering how far I've flown.
Here till the end.
She grinned, proud of her ability to follow the conversation. Her hearing comprehension was superior to her verbal skills. It made me wish I could pick up French faster. I swirled my spoon into my soup until it was cheesy enough to form strings when I lifted the utensil. Satisfied, I swallowed a mouthful. Joan stuck out her tongue at the sight, causing Chantal to laugh.
Stop giving her culture shock, Melissa. She's very sheltered.
It's just cheese. Goodness. Before we knew it, lunch was officially over, and it was time to return to our assigned tasks. Hopefully I would be able to properly introduce myself to Rosemarie later. I had a feeling I'd learn a lot from her. Oh yeah. She's a good girl, Rosemarie. Yay! Succeeding! Oh, hello.
Melissa, over here!
Chantal padded to a spot beside her while Joan was trying to get the campfire going. Can I?
Of course. Joan, as tu besoin diet?
Joan set the lighter down as she fiddled with the woodpile in the pit. Here, you gotta make it like a tent, then place the kindling in the center. Soon we had a small fire going, and Chantal clapped in awe.
I thought you were a city girl, but you know your camp stuff.
A bit. I went to dance camp every summer, so we do things like chop firewood or go for hikes to build up our stamina.
Was that a dance camp or a boot camp?
I swear, we did fun things too. We sang songs and ate a lot of s'mores. Chantal and Joan exchanged a glance, and she translated my comments.
S'mores? What are those?
A great American tradition. You take marshmallows roasted over a campfire, some chocolate, and then sandwich them between graham crackers.
That sounds like a strange combination. Is it good?
Heavenly. We should make some sometime. Absolutely. S'mores! Let's have a girls' s'mores night. Oh, hello, Augustin. Augustin, why does this vertebra look so pitted?
Looks like silly cave bear got eaten by smart hyena or lion. Those are bite marks attacking the anterior thoracic vertebral column.
And...
Lower spine, petite fleur.
Ugh! I squealed in my seat as a brush poked my back.
If that is from layer A2GR, I believe we already have 3 bones from that same animal.
Must be tough piecing it all together.
We have collections going back to 80s. We are still 15 pieces found decades apart.
Did people always know about this cave? How was it found? Don't you dare troll me.
You aware of popular movie with an archaeologist who carries whip?
Dun da 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 da. Oh yes.
Because of that movie, many kids were inspired and explored region, pretending to find treasure. Silly kids stumble on cave here.
Who knew an inaccurate portrayal of archaeology would lead to a real archaeological discovery?
We still get an occasional student who is disappointed this cave is not a booby-trapped temple. I would lose all my help if that was the case.
Maybe it is, and we just haven't dug the traps up yet.
If so, you will be the first to find out. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
He laughed, then excused himself, and I glanced at the chewed bone. Maybe I should dig on a higher level instead. Just maybe. Woo! Tense. Why was the air around here so tense? I pondered that while I stirred my cheese-drenched tomato soup. Both Joan and Chantal, who previously sat and talked with me, had disappeared. Many students paced by the museum entrance. Some checked their phones or glanced over the shoulders of others to view their screens. Ah, yes. Meanwhile, DeAndre spread mustard on his second or third sandwich. At least he seemed unfazed. What's going on? Everyone appears to be anticipating something.
Exam results are being released today.
This late? After a casual shrug, he took a large bite of his sandwich. He wiped his mouth before speaking.
Usually they're released earlier, but they had some problem with the data or entry system or whatever.
They must be super important if everyone looks this anxious.
It's a make or break it deal. If students don't average out a certain percentage, they have to repeat a year.
You must be nervous then? You seem rather calm, or wish him luck. Let's try the second one. Compared to the other students, you aren't sweating bullets.
That's because most of them are first or second years.
I see. You're probably used to this by now then.
Too used to it. Fortunately, this will be my last semester, and then I'm free. The only thing left is to finish this elective requirement, since I'd hate to waste a semester on a single course. A more expensive course, too.
Jealous? At least you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like I barely started and it'll never end. I felt a playful fleck on my forehead.
It'll be over before you know it. Hang in there.
Before I could respond, one of the students announced something in French, and everyone tapped away at their phones again.
Results are up.
From the reactions, DeAndre didn't need to clarify. However, he set the sandwich down and fished out his phone.
Bye, DeAndre.
I stood up and uttered a small later, not wanting to distract him from seeing his results. I was about to grab the zipper to my tent when I heard a soft cry behind me. Oh. Chantal tapped at the tent she and Joan shared, speaking in French. The only response inside were muffled sniffles. Oh no, Joan! Did you not get good results? Is everything all right?
Joan failed a music theory course.
Even if the delivery was blunt, I liked Chantel's honesty.
I don't know the details. Apparently it was a simple music reading exam with an instrument of your choice, to a rudimentary score. Joan's amazing at flute, but performing, she gets overwhelmed and does badly.
Oh, that must be hard on her. You're trying to talk to her now?
Yes, but because I've been supportive of her dreams for years, she's having a hard time facing me.
Well, I'll give it a shot. She's my boo. My possible boo. Maybe I could talk to her?
You?
I just met you two, but maybe she'll be more willing to talk to someone new. Sometimes it's easier to open up to an acquaintance than a close friend.
There's also the language barrier. I doubt she'll be speaking much anyway. It's worth a shot. Joan?
Chantel spoke again in French. From the tone, Joan sounded confused but intrigued by the offer. After a reluctant "oui," Chantel stepped back from the tent to grant me access.
I'll use the time to grab her something to drink. Thanks, Melissa.
I opened the flap, unable to spot Joan, until I saw her curled body shift under the sleeping bag. I sat down on Chantel's side of the tent and waited for her to notice me. Oh, hello. Slowly she sat up, her eyes red and defeated. University is hard. It is. First-year student? I held out one finger and repeated year. She nodded, then curled her knees up to her chest. Do you like music? Oui, I want to... She fumbled for the correct words, then took out her phone, opening up a French-English dictionary application. Teach music. Concerts are too scary, but practice. Exam I performed. Easy music, but... She mimicked holding up a flute, then accelerated her breathing while her fingers twitched nervously. I nodded understandingly. Have to try again. And now you know. Next time you can do better. Encore. Ah, right. A spark returned to her eyes. She wasn't one to give up easily. I gave her a soft pat on the shoulder. Ça va? Ça va bien. First time archaeology? Yes, this is my first time at Grotte de Calais. I patted the ground to emphasize the location. Joan's eyebrows furrowed in concentration before she gazed at me in resolve. Then, let us pass archaeology together. Keep going ahead. It's a promise. And you can retake the music course in the fall. Now you know what to expect and can prepare for it. I wasn't sure how much she comprehended, but she smiled gratefully. I will keep studying. English, too. And I'll work on my French. Relieved that she cheered up, I crawled out of the tent. Chantel stood nearby, holding a bottle of water.
Is she feeling better? She usually recovers quickly, but I still worry.
Yes. Honestly, I don't think I did much. If anything, she's determined to pass this elective now.
We did make a promise to stay here and help each other out. Let's make it out of here with a passing grade, the three of us. Thanks again for talking to her. You should probably go for a walk or return to your tent to read. It's going to be a very emotional day for many students here.
Good idea. I like these girls. They're so sweet. Oh no, I broke my bones. Y26, altitude 120. I mumbled to myself as I jotted down the measurements. Once that was done, I wrapped the tiny, unidentified bone fragment in tin foil, then slipped a piece of paper with a 3 on it among the folds. I was digging through some forgotten badger burrow, which meant all the context in it was mixed up and useless. Did I even need to draw this on the document? Even with my music on, I heard it rain heavily outside, and it felt much damper in the cave. Oh. Kyler shifted from his knees to stand up. As a faster digger, he already reached the bottom of his square, and had been in a stooped position for some time. Oh, there it goes. As I zipped up my plastic bag, the lights suddenly went out. There were a few high-pitched squeals, but no real panic. Chatter murmured through the higher levels of the cave. I yanked my earbuds out and stuffed them into my hoodie pocket. I could barely see, although there were faint sources of illumination from emergency lights on the main catwalk. Augustin delivered something in French, while Sherry relayed the message farther down, likely instructions. Pulling out my phone, I switched to the flashlight application and set it on the clipboard between me and Kyler. What did they say?
He said that if the lights don't turn on in 10 to 15 minutes, we can leave. He's also grabbing some extra flashlights so he and Sherry can guide everyone out safely.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel confident walking around here in the dark, especially on the walkways with no rails. Grabbing my knee pads, I improvised a little cushion and sat down. Kyler did the same but sat cross-legged with his hands resting on his ankles. There was light conversation along with jokes and laughter surrounding us, while Kyler and I remained silent. I fought the urge to pick up my phone and fiddle with a game or something to pass the time. I craved conversation with Kyler, but I had no common ground or good entry point. What would I even mention? Dirt? Digging? How annoying it was for clay to stick to your trowel. Shoji was shy, but our interests overlapped. DeAndre was friendly overall, and Hendrik would launch into a lively monologue if I asked about rocks. Kyler... Spotting him raising his left hand, I let out a tiny protesting whimper before I could stop myself. Wait. His fingers paused inches from his implant, and he turned to me curiously.
What is it?
I mentally kicked myself. I had no inkling of a topic either. In my scramble, I decided to... Badges worked so well last time, but let's mention the weather, because that's always an icebreaker. Good old reliable weather. That was the reason we had weather in the first place. To make small talk. It's raining really hard, isn't it? I sure don't get rainstorms like this much back home. Is it normally like this in Belgium?
I guess. There can be heavy rains during the summer. This happened before, too.
Right, you've been here 4 times now. You must know all of the routines and procedures. The awkward silence lingered between us once more, the atmosphere as damp as it was outside.
Why did you say wait?
I curled up with my arms around my knees. Sorry. I did that because I thought you were going to turn your implant off, and I wanted to talk to you. You know, to pass the time. Kyler stared at me quizzically, like the notion had never crossed his mind. I wondered how common it was for someone to initiate a conversation with him.
I see. I was originally going to scratch my head. It wouldn't be sensible to switch it off while awaiting instructions.
Why do you turn it off anyway? Concentration?
Yes, that and battery life. I find it easier to work in silence while...
He glanced down at my phone with the earbuds attached. I smiled wryly. Total opposite, huh? I always need background noise, even if I'm reading. Shifting to my knees, I turned to him, sensing that we could maintain a conversation now. I pointed to my own ear impulsively as another question bubbled up. I bit my tongue to stop my inquiry and lowered my arm. However, Kyler noticed. For a second I thought he would give me a deprecating frown, but instead he seemed amused. His tone was dry and matter-of-fact.
You're so nosy.
I'm sorry. You don't have to answer.
I don't mind. Anyway, it's hereditary. I was born deaf.
What's the sign language taught here? I only know of ASL.
There's 2. Langue de Signes de Belgique francophone and the Flemish Sign Language. Both are pretty similar. It's the mouthing and dialects that differ. You're going to ask me to sign now, aren't you?
It's like you read my mind. Despite that, he seemed delighted, or at least complied without complaint. His hands moved while he spoke.
I usually sign in the French community, and therefore I'm used to mouthing or speaking French along with it. English... I am a bit slower, but I think you get the picture.
His voice was deliberately unhurried, as were the gestures that accompanied it. I watched with interest.
Since you're from the States, this is how we sign American.
He interlaced his fingers in front of his chest. After making a complete circle, his hands dropped down. So when you complain about a nosy American, I'll know what to look for.
There
is this nosy American girl?
The last gesture looked as if he was pretending to scrape something off the side of his jaw with his thumb. He stopped when we both heard voices echoing throughout the cave.
They're telling us to leave everything. Save our documents and photographs here. A safety measure.
Gotcha, thanks.
Are you okay down there?
I glanced up and spotted Sherry, who held a large and powerful flashlight. Yes, we'll be right up.
Wow, that digging session was cut short.
Ugh.
So much for socializing.
I should check my email. My parents must have.
As I opened the lab door, I immediately froze.
Augustin ranted angrily at Rosemarie, who gestured to a chipped stone with tiny flakes surrounding it.
Permission to touch or manipulate any.
This is for my research.
The two paused and turned to me, and I cowered at their annoyed stares. As I shrunk back, Augustin approached and slammed the door shut. Not wanting to loiter, I whirled around and collided into someone. Now I was awkwardly sandwiched between that person and the door. Sorry about that. I glanced up, instantly recognizing Kyler's tall frame. He appeared baffled and gazed at the door. Muffled voices still argued behind it. He took a few steps back to allow more space between us. Mercy.
Did something happen?
From what I could gather, Augustin is mad at Rosemarie over something. Why, were you planning to enter the lab too?
Yes, I was planning to ask a few questions, but it's probably not the best time now. Yourself.
I wanted to check my email. My laptop is in there, but I don't think they'd appreciate it if I slipped in to nab it.
You could try using the computer upstairs.
That old thing? Well, it's worth a shot. It was then I heard the faint clicking of a keyboard upstairs. I doubted Hendrik would remain in the lab with that sort of tension going on. Sure enough, halfway up the stairs, I spotted his auburn ponytail. I glanced back down at Kyler. Maybe it's something you can ask Hendrik.
I don't like going to him.
Kyler never acted this juvenile, and it caught me off guard. I wondered if he'd mistranslated his words, but his body language suggested otherwise. If you're curious, I could ask Hendrik about the situation. Hesitantly, Kyler took a step forward, and I cheered silently. I doubted Kyler would mention his original question to Hendrik, but maybe engaging him in conversation would loosen up whatever friction the two had with each other. I trooped upstairs energetically and gave Hendrik a wave. Hey, working up here now?
Sort of had to. Couldn't concentrate with the noise downstairs.
So... did this last time. Let's see what this does. May I use your laptop for a second? I need to check my email. Hendrik reluctantly closed his application, then shuffled the chair back a few inches.
Sure, knock yourself out. Just don't take too long.
Great, thanks. While I logged in, Kyler spoke up.
What are Augustin and Rosemarie bickering about this time?
Oh, Mom emailed me.
I'm just completely out of this conversation this time. Despite my advice, she insisted on gluing flakes to a lithic core found in the A3 layers, since we've been able to uncover debitage belonging to that core.
Aw, that was a fancy restaurant Dad took her to. I wish she took pictures of the food and not just the decor.
And she ended up using the wrong glue. It's going to be a pain to disassemble. Why do you keep her around? All she does is cause problems for everyone.
Oh, there's a link to a bunny video. Should I click on that? Click for bunnies. How can I pass up some cute bunnies? It'll only take a minute. I loaded the video, then hastily turned off the volume so as not to disturb the other two.
This is amazing.
Ah.
Melissa, I said you could borrow it quickly, not watch a movie. What are you even... Aw, it's washing its face. No, Bunny's off the laptop.
He swatted me away and clicked out of the browser. He'd usually be more playful about it, but his mood had soured.
Also, Kyler, that was out of line. Despite our disagreements, Rosemarie is excellent at her job. If anything, her insight has been valuable.
Affronted, Hendrik stood up from his chair, shooting Kyler an aggravated glare.
Kyler flinched slightly, but his eyes narrowed again. I tensed up, wondering if I should say something to appease them or leave before it got too heated.
I only say that because I'm thinking of the excavation team's best interests. You're getting ahead of yourself here. You're acting like you're one of us already. Just because you're in my uncle's good graces doesn't mean we'll hire you once you graduate. And we're not intending to hire anyone soon, especially not an inexperienced person fresh out of university with only a few months of fieldwork under his belt.
Kyler lowered his arms, his eyes looking both resentful and distraught, as if the notion had never occurred to him. Recovering, he clenched a fist, his voice rigid with determination.
I've excavated here longer than most people. I've certainly spent more time in the cave than you. I'm highly qualified. There's much more than just digging diligently in the same old square.
Oh, I didn't care if I was an outsider. Guys, quit it! I firmly stood between them before their voices escalated even louder than the commotion downstairs. There's already one dispute. Can we not have another? I'm leaving. Patooey on both of you. Anyway, I'm out. You guys can continue bickering if you'd like.
Sorry for that, Melissa.
Later. At least Hendrik apologized. Kyler's like, I refuse.
I refuse.
Peace and quiet with my girls.
Hey, Melissa, where do you stay on the weekends?
Here, of course.
Here? Alone?
Well, another student was supposed to come, but she couldn't make it.
It's not much, but we were thinking, if you'd like, you could stay with us on the weekends.
Really? Wow, really?
It's small, though.
We share a flat in Liège. I mean, you've come all the way to Belgium. It'd be a shame if you remained here the whole time. What do you say? Feel free to think about it and let us know.
Thanks, I really appreciate it.
Yay! We could spend time with our girls on the weekend.
That sounds awesome.
Let's talk about it.
Aw, no to the s'mores, guys? Oh. Oh man, lab is still difficult. Why does everything I touch turn to dust? I ambled over to the tent area, wondering if I should kill time by gaming or reading. It was then I spotted Shoji sitting on the edge of his air mattress with the tent flap open. There was a sketchbook in his lap and a pencil sticking out of his mouth. He was erasing something intently, his eyes furrowed in concentration. Quietly, I sauntered over and leaned to the side to catch a glimpse. "What you doin'?" His head jerked up in surprise as he dropped the eraser, his wide eyes peering over his glasses. He mumbled over the pencil before taking it out. Once the shock wore off, his feet shuffled closer, hesitant to reveal his work. Drawing. Should we be mean? I don't want to be mean to Shoji. But curiosity. You definitely are different compared to online. Shoji flinched from the comment and he fiddled with the corner of the page. Yeah, I'm not good with talking to people in real life. I'm not sure if this will help in any way, but it's just me. I enjoy our online conversations, and I hope you'll be able to feel comfortable around me in person, too. I'll try. Thanks, Melissa. Good. Now, what are you drawing? Can I look? It's nothing amazing, honest. Despite his modesty, he handed over the notebook and anxiously awaited my feedback. I examined the rough drawing and realized he was sketching his surroundings. Half of the tents were shaded in, while faint lines resembled other tents and trees. Why here? I had the urge to draw all day, and my mind was full of ideas. But when I finally got here, I blanked out like the paper and didn't know what to draw. I decided to sketch everything around me. Even so, this is really good. It's practically a photograph. I held the drawing in the air, pretending it was in a frame mounted on a wall to compare it to its real counterpart. Shoji fidgeted with the pencil, his eyes averted. Really? I mean it. You don't mind if I look through your sketchbook, right? Shoji shook his head and I crouched down by the tent so we could both see the sketches. Noticing the awkward position, Shoji shuffled to the edge of the air mattress and I sat down beside him appreciatively. I flipped to the very start of the sketchbook, greeted by doodles of various circles and triangles. I wondered if it was a drawing exercise. You could probably skip the first few pages. It's just me testing pencils out and... Wait, these are perfectly round circles. You can draw perfectly round circles? What is this sorcery? I gave him a mock glare, then continued to browse through the sketchbook. When I stumbled on some familiar fictional critters, when Shoji cringed as if he had completely forgotten, while I let out a squeal of delight. Oh, we got ourselves a fellow Mocket fan! I love Mockets! I should have known. A fan of the series? Since the first game. I grew up with it, and I still buy every installment. I was wondering when I'd find your video game art. It's what got me into drawing. I loved the designs and wanted to draw my own monsters. Then I learned some of them were based on real animals, and my art shifted to realism over the years. I'm trying to find my own art style. I occasionally draw some of the original Mockets once in a while to compare progress. I flipped to the second to last page before the tent sketch and noticed life drawings of various hand poses. They were all crossed out with an X, followed by a scribbled French sentence that was barely legible. What's this say? He leaned in to tap the writing. It says, curse my inability to draw fists. I find hands the hardest to draw. Ain't that the truth? Our shoulders grazed, and he jerked away apologetically. Whoops. To ease his nervousness, I pretended not to notice and handed his book back. Are you seriously thinking of pursuing art in college? He visibly relaxed and contemplated the question. I'd like to, but it's hard to be financially secure career-wise. Not that I need a luxurious lifestyle or anything, but it'd be preferable if I didn't have to worry about bills or affording groceries. I thought maybe I could go into computer engineering instead and practice my art on the side. I'm currently thinking it over. I am in my first semester after all. Computer engineering all the way, encourage him to go into art, agree he'll figure out what works best. You got it, man. Agreed. You barely started. I'm sure you'll figure out which path to take after a semester or two. What about you? Did you go into college already knowing what you wanted? I thought I did. I wanted to get into sociology, although I wasn't sure exactly what. I loved the idea of working in the community, like a recreation worker, or in foster care, or something similar. Then, I somehow meandered into digging up bones, lured away by anthropology courses, and now archaeology. I don't regret it though, even if my parents don't understand it, and badger me about whether I'll find a stable job after I graduate. I'm better at living for the moment. I'll figure it out by my third year, I'm sure. I hope. But it's cool, I do have emergency backups job-wise. That's what resume building is for. I'm sure you'll end up picking what works for you, Shoji. I hope so too. There was a holler from the other side of the site. Shoji didn't need to translate that dinner was ready. Sweet, I'm starving. Thanks for letting me look at your sketchbook, Shoji. I adore your art. It was no problem. I'm glad you weren't disappointed. I rarely show people my artwork, and I wasn't sure how you'd react. If you draw something new, be sure to show me. Promise. Aww, Shoji, you're a sweetheart.